Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, Cynicalex, and today we want to talk about Bullseye and the new Hawkeye uniform that he got, and what's good and what's bad about it, because it's a pretty interesting upgrade for him, but it also shows us a bit of an interesting change in what we came to expect from speed villain characters, especially speed villains who can be transcended, awakened and transcended. So this is what his skills look like. This is what the rotation looks like for his skills. And with this team up of Gladiator's lead and Taskmaster's passive / CTP of Insight, this is what the damage looks like. It's pretty good, as you can see, and it's got a lot of the sort of Hawkeye features with the arrows and the shooting and the arrow sound effects that you would expect from Hawkeye. And the damage is not bad, as you can see. This is stage 60 Proxima, so it's not a pretty low stage, and he's doing decent damage. He's doing decent damage. However, what I'm not showing you, or what I haven't been able to simulate yet just through play, is that he's extremely fragile with only two iframes, an iframe on 5 and an iframe on 2, and with only one skill that has immunity, which is his first skill. You're really playing a dangerous game when he's unawakened, where if you make one mistake, or if you get sort of interrupted or guard broken at all, you're toast. There we missed our proc on 3 cancel 5. That's where you want to get the majority of your damage from. So now we are trying to proc, I guess, on 4 for the time being. Honestly, I'm just trying to keep Bullseye alive, and that's what you're going to end up doing when you play with this uniform. You're going to be trying to keep him alive in World Boss, another sort of difficult survivability content. When you play something like ABX, which is where you're going to see a lot of players rave about his value, the Frost Beast really doesn't do any damage, and neither does the little Ultron robots, so you don't really have to worry about damage there. You don't have to worry about getting killed. Even the most fragile characters in the game, like, you know, Cosmic Ghost Rider, can easily survive in ABX, whereas in something like Squad Battle, where Searcher actually does considerable damage, and then, of course, in World Boss, where the boss does a lot of damage, you may find yourself frustrated with Bullseye's gameplay, because it's literally one and done. If you make a mistake, you're toast. I haven't made a mistake yet. So we're going to see if I can maybe finish this off here. There's the combo, 3 into 5, 2 for the iframe. Okay, there we go. We made our first mistake. Basically, she iframed away from me by jumping, and that interrupted my first skill. If I didn't have the reflexes to move out of the way, I would have died there. And here, we're going to just lose all of our damage. So, okay, never mind. He can't even outrun. He's dead. Okay, he couldn't outrun the spears. I wanted to show you his damage with the frenzy buff up, which basically removes his all defense down. But we weren't able to do it. So he can almost do stage 60. But as you can see, his performance compared to other characters that have recently come out, like, you know, even Morbius recently, is a bit low. His damage does seem a bit lacking. But now let's check out the build, and I'll talk about what the character brings to the table, and why you may want to get or not get this uniform. Because it is an interesting uniform, but at the same time, I feel like this is a much more expensive speed villain than we've come to expect lately. But that's not a bad thing, because we've gotten a lot of really good, really cheap speed villains recently. So my build here, I've got 26,000 physical attack, 27,000 HP. Right away, that should be setting alarm bells off in your mind, right? That's like the Carnage stuff. There's other characters like that, where if their attack is almost as high as their HP, that means they're extremely squishy. That's just basically how it works. Unless they have like 40,000 attack and 40,000 HP. I mean, they'd still be squishy with only 40,000 HP at tier 2, but the 40,000 attack would be awesome. Anywho, we've got 4-star Uru, which is sort of a leftover, a holdover from his old Bullseye days. On my build, on my roster. Crit damage here on the quiver. We've got Power of Angry Hulk stage 6. The attack speed is really important. You want to get through those animations quickly because they're long, right? He winds up the arrow, he winds up the bow. You just want to get through those really quickly, so you need high attack speed. And then I was rocking with a crit damage 160 proc. So it's a pretty free to play build, but the result was not super impressive, especially compared to Moonstone. The result is really not that impressive when he's unawakened. So unawakened, he's obviously lacking. Now, if you take a look at his skills, his first skill has a 4-second immunity on an 8-second timer, which means you can technically have his immunity up all the time. But with the long animations on his other skills and the fact that you can't really cancel, you can really only cancel his fourth skill, kind of. It's not that you cancel his fourth skill, is that by the time the animation is done on Blazing Madness, there's lingering effects. You can basically only cancel Cold Assassination. So the 4-second immunity here on an 8-second timer doesn't really matter. But anyway, he's also got an iframe here with a bit of paralysis and whatever with an 8-second cooldown. The paralysis is important because it can work for ABX, okay? Then we've got here a buff, a pretty nice self buff, a 35-35 buff for 10 seconds, so you can get that up all the time, which means that his soft cap for crit damage is 40%. So you don't actually have to go above 40%, even with the CTP of Rage, which will be important and will explain why he's an expensive speed villain compared to others that we've gotten recently. But yeah, so soft cap is 40% on the crit damage, which is very nice because it's an 18-second cooldown, which means you can cast it every 9 seconds, and you will cast it every 9 seconds or less. No, not less, but yeah, every 9 seconds. And so you'll get that buff all the time, but yeah, 9 seconds is pretty brutal on the third skill. Then his fourth skill has 14-second cooldown, and it's got burn damage, so he's got paralysis and burn for ABX, Alliance Battle Extreme, you know, that game mode where they never improve the rewards. Yeah. And then Wired Bombing here also has burn, and it has minus 50 all defense down for 10 seconds. So he's got nice cooldowns on most of his skills besides 3, and he's got all defense down. So you'd think that he'd be better, but it just doesn't really pan out for him that way, especially compared to other speed villains. He definitely gets a much bigger bump than maybe other speed villains do when you give him a CTP of Rage, which is why I am referring to him as a very expensive speed villain compared to the likes of other characters we've gotten recently. So that's what I want to basically do is take a look at and point out the fact that recently, this year especially, we got Dr. Octopus, who is very free-to-play friendly and doesn't need a Rage to excel. He doesn't need to be awakened. So he's sort of like Bullseye in that sense, where I think his value is really not going to appear until you awaken him. He kind of needs the awakening, but he can do very, very well with the CTP of Energy. Does not need a Rage to do well. And then you had Viper and Mystique. Mystique was more expensive, but now she's much cheaper because you don't need Magneto anymore. And then we got Spider-Gwen, also, who is quite free-to-play friendly and again doesn't need a Rage. Probably excels with a Rage most, but doesn't necessarily need a Rage to do good damage because of all the delayed attacks that she has, which allows her to stack up the different hits. So we've gotten a lot of good speed villains this year. We really have, and we hadn't really gotten one that was unimpressive unless built to the max. And that's what I think. I'm not 100% sure, but that's where I would put Bullseye. I think that's not Bullseye. I think Bullseye is not going to impress you if you build him halfway. Whereas Gwenom and other characters and other speed villains may still impress you if you build them halfway. Like, I was more impressed by Scorpion. Building Scorpion halfway as a speed villain, I was more impressed by him than I was by Bullseye. Bullseye is really fragile, and he's really hard to keep alive, and you basically have to stick to that exact rotation. 3 cancel 5, using 2 for the iframe and also to get close, and then 1 and then 4. And if the boss, for whatever reason, cancels your first skill, that is your only line of defense. You are dead. You're dead. All you can hope for is to spam 2 and then to skip 3 and go right into 5 for the iframes and stall again to get to 1. But that's it. He only has 1 immunity skill. So I think if you build Bullseye, if you buy this uniform and you sort of half build him, you're really not going to be impressed with his output. You're really not. That's just my opinion, but yeah. He also has penetration here. It's really kind of meaningless. I don't think he has any PvP value whatsoever. He's super fragile, so the penetration is pretty irrelevant. But I do think he is a character that if you build him to the max, and I'll find out in the next video, if you build him to the max and you get him awakened, because minus 65 all defense down, and he gets an extra skill, and he also gets the invincibility. That is really going to go a long way to improve his survivability. He's also going to get way more stats. So the stats are going to help him, build up his defenses and stuff like that, and give him a little bit higher of an HP pool. But yeah, I think you're going to have to give him a CTP of Energy, or you're going to have to give him a CTP of Rage. As far as the uniform goes, I am at Heroic. We can take a look here quickly at the stats. The stats are nothing special. I mean, the skill changes are really important for Bullseye, but it's really just the 25% all attack. The 25% all attack is going to boost his attacks considerably, and that's why his physical attack is literally almost higher than his HP. But that really doesn't, mean too much when you're getting one-shotted anyway. So yeah, a bit of an interesting character. I also like the interesting comparison to other speed villains. where we've kind of been spoiled this year with some really, really nice ones, and especially ones that don't need an absolute max build to perform at a pretty high level. So I do feel like on the flip side, Bullseye is one of those characters. Like, I never awakened Gwenum, and I was still kind of impressed with her, you know, survivability and her play style. Now, she also has really low HP. I just noticed her stats are like almost identical to Bullseye, except that actually she has less, or she has more defense than he does. But I never felt the same way with Spider-Gwen. She didn't seem as fragile. She has a heal. She has accumulation. She has a guard hit. She also has immunity, I believe. Maybe she doesn't have immunity, but she does have a guard hit. Yeah, you know what? She doesn't have immunity, damn. But she does have a guard hit. That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. So he has immunity. She has a heal and a guard hit, and she feels tankier than he does. Interesting. Maybe the heal. The heal's actually pretty good. It's 3%, but it lasts for multiple attacks. So I'll go through the rotation one more time so you can see what he looks like in the skill preview and not against Proxima. He can do stage 60 Proxima unawakened, but that's really just not that impressive nowadays. You know, with the quality of characters we have, and especially with minus 50 all defense down. Like, if you compare him to Scorpion was doing that as fast, if not faster, and you don't need to buy a uniform. So what would you rather do? Use up your Rift tokens getting Bullseye's biometrics, or however you get Bullseye biometrics, right? It might just be bioselectors like Scorpion. Then you also have to buy a uniform, and then you can use him on the same stage of Proxima as you're using for Scorpion, right? It's just use Scorpion. If you're really stuck between the two characters and you're not going to build them up anyways, just build Scorpion, right? Plus you probably have a poison damage obelisk that you rolled accidentally lying around, right? Because you don't have any other poison damage characters to use it on. So yeah, the camera's so close. Weird. Anywho, so with Bullseye, basically what you want to do is 3. Now you can let the skill go, but as you can see, you don't need to. As soon as he lets the arrow go, you can. That's 6. All right, Alex, good job. Let's try this again. Yeah, that's his awakening skill with Ares and Moonstone. Cool. So as soon as that lets go, you can go into 5, and then you get the all defense down stacked up. And then you would do 2 for the iframe, right? 2 for the iframe, and also it gets way closer. You can see he's far away. He gets really close, and that's important. That's really important. If you don't do that, this is what I was doing before, basically, against Proxima. I was doing 3, 5, and then I was trying to do 1. And as you can see, 1 has a very short range to the point where he also has to run up to the boss or run up to the enemy. That run up, when you reach the when you stop and you start to cast the skill, she jumps back, and that cancels it. So what ends up happening is you die. So you have to do the 2 first. As soon as he lands, you do the 2, 1, and then you pop 4, and then you basically just run around for a couple of seconds. Maybe you do 2 and 1 again. The 2 cancel 1, the 2 into 1 combo is as important as the 3 cancel 5 proc. Like, it's really the difference between him staying alive and him getting absolutely blitzed. I also brought Rachel, if you guys didn't see that, as a striker because of the mind control. He needs that. He needs mind control. So if you don't have Rachel, he may also be worse, especially unawakened, because the survivability is going to take a hit because Proxima is going to run around more. So actually, you know what I can do? I'll take Rachel off and I'll show you. I'll play badly with that without doing the 2 cancel 1. Just that one mistake. Just not doing 2 cancel 1. Just trying to do 3, 5, 1. And you'll see what happens. And you'll see him just die suddenly because he's out of range. And then the immunity, the skill goes on cooldown, but the immunity doesn't happen. So here we're going to try 1. Okay, we got the immunity. We got guard broken. We'll do 2 afterwards. Running around, we got frozen. We took a bunch of damage. And we're dead. Cool. So there, what I should have done is I saw her winding up to throw the spears. I should have just done 2 and then into 1. But as you can see, without Rachel, it starts to get pretty dicey. And he starts to look like a very bad investment. So yeah, I think definitely skip this uniform if you're not going to awaken him, if you're not going to transcend him, because it is super sketchy to play as him. His damage is good. It's not fantastic, it's good, but we just took a bunch of damage because I didn't do the 1. Here I'm gonna have to use 1 again, just casually, because I know that there's damage from the poison clouds and stuff like that. I mean, the damage is pretty good, but we just don't need more speed villains that have this much damage, right? We definitely need more speed characters for PvP though. So see there what happened? See? You can just rewind the video there and see it there. That's exactly what I was talking about. I did the first skill. He started to run towards her, and then as soon as he stopped, she jumped back, and the skill was canceled. The skill went on cooldown, but the skill was canceled. I didn't get the immunity, and then she attacked me, and he got one-shotted. That will 100% happen to you if you do 3-5-1. So definitely do 3-5-2-1-4, and bring along a mind control striker if you can, like Apocalypse or one of these other characters that doesn't have all defense down on their striking skill, unless it's 50%. If they have a minus 50% striking skill, then that's great. You know what? Last thing, I don't know what Bullseye's ability is when he's a striker and world boss. It's actually kind of an interesting question. I'm gonna just scroll through and find out what it is, because I didn't hear anybody talking about it. We haven't had a good striker. I will say this: we haven't had a good striker added to the game in quite some time. I feel like we've had maybe one or two. But compared to some of the other strikers that we got, like last year, we got Rachel, Negasonic. You know, we got some really nice strikers last year. This year, I mean, it's been all uniform reworks, but not many of the uniform reworks. Like Storm is a good striker, right? But other than that, other than Storm and a few other ones, most of them are just like, oh, well, there you go. Ares is not bad. He's got minus all defense down. Oh, Ares could be a good striker. Okay, Ares. Yeah, he does his second skill. That's no good. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of Bullseye. I will awaken him. I'll awaken and transcend him, and then I'll show you guys a follow-up video so you guys can compare, and I'll keep the build the same so you can still compare. But I do think that ultimately he's going to shine the most, and he's going to have a huge jump once I just give him a full investment, which I may still end up doing for ABX and squad battle. But again, that requires full transcendence and awakening, full like 5-6 star Uru Odin's Blessing, and then a CTP of Rage. So it's super duper expensive, not for most players unless you're competitive and you're into ABX and squad battle at a very high level. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I pointed way too early. Take care.